like I said, self-doubt, I wasn't ready to commit to it. And then the wind picked up and blowing from where I just came from, so there was no going back.
Okay.
And now you turn the page and you say like, well, the job is now here. I need to go that way, and I need to do it in a seaman-like manner and get some.
So you just shed all that self-doubt and just
I did, and then like a little squall came by, saw the big black cloud, and I battened down the hatches and put on my rain gear, and I was ready for the hurricane, and it was rain and a little gusty, and then it passed, and these little successes when you're alone are
mean the world to you, right?
They're so huge. You're so huge, even though that was nothing that happened, but I anticipated more.
Right.
Just you feel the confidence from your tips of your fingers, right?
You feel alive.
Right
you
to
feel
your hips, right? You feel alive, and you have the flip side of that is when you're alone. Let's just say that the emotions are higher and lower,
Yes.
unmanaged, unmitigated, unrestrained maybe by others around that can help stabilize your mood,
right,
or what have you. So then you have, the bad things happen. Like a week later, I got hit by a big nor'easter. It came off of Cape Hatteras, the old classic nor'easter, big storm. And, what I was prepared for before now was the real deal. And, it was like 4 days of that.
Wow.
And it was scary. And I threw out this long parachute behind me, streaming parachute drogue, to slow the boat because I was just surfing down the faces of the waves, and they were huge waves and so steep, and the boat would pick up to a surf, and it was scary, and I couldn't even sleep because I was so electrified though by, if you like nature, you like hiking or mountains or seascapes. I think seascapes are a best kept secret out there when the sea is in its mood. It's the most beautiful thing. The white caps, as far as the eye can see, when you're raised up on the top, you can see forever. And you see this blown spume and foam across the surface. It's a beautiful thing. Sand dune style water,
right.
rolling towards you. And so you're mixed with that fear is usually superseded by the awe of the natural fury around you. It's so powerful. You feel so tiny and insignificant and thankful.
Right. How long did the journey take you to get from?
It took me 22 or 3 days. I forget exactly.
Okay.
It was a long one because halfway up after that storm, that parachute drogue that I was dragging for 2 days wrapped around my self-steering gear and ripped it out, and totally destroyed it. So I found myself with 8 days, what should have been maybe more like 6 or 5, 8 days to hand steer up to Nantucket, where I put in about 100 miles short of where I was going.
Okay.
I flew back a month later and finished it. But, I was just so shagged and so destroyed. Like we were talking about earlier, from the guy that experienced the breakage to the guy that shows up on shore, be a shadow of his former self. Absolutely, just the psychological drain. There's always that low level anxiety when you're out there alone. I mean, everything.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Like just being like, I consider myself a little bit of an introvert, so I can appreciate that. But I don't know what I could do with 28 days by myself. Like, so how would you?
If I devoured books, I fished. Busy yourself to give yourself a bath once in a while. Everything takes longer aboard.
Yeah.
Let's get that out of the way. Life isn't you're not walking around your living room. This is a moving living room. And stuff slides around, and so you take stuff out and you put it away right away. It's not like you're hanging out in your kitchen. Making a meal takes time.
Right.
And, it's not always freeze-dried food. You want to bring some fresh stuff.
Right.
Using the bathroom when underway in a big seaway in a big sea. Even that is it's an exercise gymnastics at times. Hold still. Sail changes. You can make it as much or as little work as you want. If you don't mind the time when you show up, you could show up 20% later and do like 80% less work,
Okay.
But if you want to go closer to what that boat is capable of performing at, suddenly the caloric expenditure goes up considerably, parabolically, dragging up sail bags, 50-pound sail bags, and taking an hour on the foredeck to rig them all up, get them on their clips, and one-man band, right? All that stuff. There's a one right way, the order of things when you're dealing with big canvas. where people say like, what about a short-handed boat? 2 people on there. I'd say they're nothing like each other, because not only do you have that company and that somebody to help that's on the same team. That's a big thing. You're all on the team of the ship, right?
Right.
You know, all hands for the
There's
boat.
no time for petty.
No, we're all on the same team here. You know, success is survival.
Right, exactly.
So you know, there's that. When you're all alone, I mean, you find out who you really are, a person that you have never seen before, or at least a color and depth of that person that you didn't know was there.
Right.
Because it's always, you know, short little moments of alone time, right? We all get it, and some of us love it.
Right.
And some say like, well, I don't know what a whole day or a whole week. I think right after that week is when it really starts to get good.
Yeah?
Yeah. The first few days, it's always the same thing. Longing, you just left the land, you probably had fun there, and now you're underway getting someplace. But once you are out and away from land, when you can't see anything, now
that disconnect is just like...
You become like the president of your own country, and it's as far as the eye can see, and you are the president there.
Yeah.
You know, and you're fragile and small, and the sea is benevolent and moody, and that means you no harm. But when she gets in her mood, it do whatever it wants to you, and it's up to you and your own wits to make your way better.
Right.
So, you know, there's, like I said, the highs are really high. Little successes, you fix something, you know, you pick the right tack, you know, you timed your currents right, and you had a great day's run. Nothing better. You feel like you're just unstoppable. And then when bad things happen, and happen over and over again, or little mistakes add up to bigger problems, that's the weight of the world. It just hurts the head to think about it. And what happens is you probably end up trying to work on it and not sleeping. You know, it's an easy thing. Sleep is something that a person has to get their hands around when you're all alone.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't like to do it, or, you know, there was a guy in the race, you know, he just couldn't sleep, and he was like,
what, amphetamines or what? I mean, what
he said that it felt like climbing into the back seat of the car going 55 miles an hour. There's nobody at the wheel. And to close your eyes. He goes, how do you do that? You know, and it's
a good point.
It's a very good point, and it took me that trip up to Maine to figure that one out.
You have to train yourself to like.
Whenever the craziness starts to happen in your mind, and the highs and the lows become closer together. That's when now I know. I go, I need to sleep, you know. And you lay down and you wake up in 3 hours. Everything, your outlook is better.
Yeah.
Whatever these problems were, they're smaller, and you're in a better position to attack. And then you start to say like, that's Nabil really tired. That's the crazy highs and the lows, and probably more lows. It's the sleep. Sleep is a huge thing.
So after you logged in those 2,000 miles, you officially signed up for the 50th anniversary for the Golden.
Yes, after that, so I could submit my application and say I got everything you're asking for.
And what was the process of that? I mean, you
was
already had a boat that you were. Is this the same boat that you're going to use?
Right, when I saw that, I said, I have a contested 32, I'm ready to sign up in your race.
Okay.
And I said, well, that's nice, but that boat, although designed in the 70s, too new still. They wanted long keel boats of yesteryear.
Okay.
These are 50-year-old family cruising boats. All of these boats in this race the rules were 32 to 36 feet, mono hull, you know, and full keel weighing no less than 13,000 pounds.
Okay.
So these were all heavy, slow sea donkeys that were great for taking the family across oceans, you know. A tough spine on them, but not fast, not sporty. So I went on a search for the boat, and I picked one that I thought looked prettiest, you know, because I didn't know anything about long-keeled boats. I know that they're all slow. I don't think you're gonna pick like one faster than the next, and for the most part that's true. But I got a Ketch, has 2 masts. It was really pretty.
Okay, and what was the name of your boat?
Liberty 2.
Liberty 2.
You know, I
what's the name behind that? Yeah.
It was in memory of the crew of the USS Liberty. Named it in their honor. You know, it's the most highly decorated warship in the U.S. Navy's history. From one engagement. You know, nobody realized it. You think of all these big famous names on boats, but no one's ever heard of that one.
Right.
And it's the most decorated ship in the U.S. Navy. one engagement in the Mediterranean in 1967, I believe. When the Israelis attacked it. And, and those guys were so thankful to hear somebody trying to bring some color to their story. And
so did other people reach out to you about that? When you
Absolutely. Next thing I knew, I had, my first set of fan base, were the veterans of the U.S. Liberty, and they sent me a hat, an honorary crew member here. So I think the world of those guys and of their service and
how to support and also
their forgotten story, and nobody knows what a Palestinian goes through better than those guys.
Right.
So, there was that was one batch of fans, I would say. A lot of buddies from Chaska and families I grew up with were super supportive. Brought me food to fill my freeze dryer. Flew out to France to give me a hand setting up and moving the boat.
Oh, your friends from Chaska came out?
Wow. Guys I went to high school
That's
with.
awesome.
Dave Dimmler and sail makers here in St. Louis Park. Sail crafters Tim Carlson came out, and Sandy Ship and Gina Cook. Were.
Wow, you had a very supportive team. That's amazing.
Huge support. Yeah, and a grassroots. It's not like I was a professional team and I had a budget for salaries. These were people that that are in my life that just took it on themselves to come out and give a hand. Roger Genet from Italy drove over from Italy with his brother in their pickup truck and gave me a big hand and running heavy bits around in France. It was you really respect and cherish your friendships when you see when you're in a corner.
Right.
People came out of the woodwork, and it was huge.
And so then, when was the start date of the race?
It was July 1st. The race started July 1st. By then, I was just itching to get out of the marina anyway. There's so much press.
Tell us about that. The sponsorship. Like, what was the hardships of getting ready before the actual sailing?
Didn't have the budget for what I needed on one level. I had an unsupportive boat company that did the work on much of the work anyway in England. And a tenuous relationship there. And basically a lot of the other contestants had sponsorship, and they had a team of paid professionals.
Oh wow!
And
were you like the not amateur, but were you?
I was the amateur under. I would say out of the field of 19, there were probably 2 or 3 other guys, kind of from my experience level and with the type of support that I had.
Okay.
Other families.
Right.
So I can't feel bad about it. It was just super difficult to even get to the start line and qualify and everything else. And so once we got that taken care of and I got my green card, we were off to the races. But I had to work till the last day, and there's no shortage of traffic and press on the boardwalk. Sailing in France is a big deal. And you'd never get that reception here. It was every day was like the carnival. People walking their families down the docks.
Wow.
Looking at the race boats. So you're trying to do all your repairs and tidy.
Do the meets and greets,
and you don't want to shaft anybody. So where a lot of the other guys that were pros, they were in town having drinks and food and staying away from their boat because of that. Or I had no choice. I had to keep on working on it. And, you're outside and you're like, "Excuse me, could you take a picture? Could you sign this?" But never been asked to sign anything before in my life, so that was a new one. But yeah, I was ready for it to start.
And so you sailed off July 1st, and what was the route that you were taking?
The route was the route of the old sail ships from yesteryear, the great days of sail. They would go down to the Southern Ocean, so you would traverse the North and South Atlantic, using the prevailing trade winds for their seasons, because they have a set path. The northeast trade winds and the north. El Norte blows down the coast of Portugal, got me across the Bay of Biscay, and then you had the northeast trade winds start to form, took me down past Gibraltar, and the race would go all the way around South Africa, and then you would take advantage of the westerly winds. They blow constantly down in the roaring 40s, the 40-degree latitudes and below. And the furious 50s and screaming 60s, but it all blows from the west.
Okay.
And so it would give you through the southern part of the Indian Ocean. You would sail east and you would take a film drop in Tasmania if you made it that far, and then you'd continue on south of New Zealand, and finally around the last Great Cape. The race goes around the 4 Great Capes, South Cape of Good Hope, Cape Lewin off of Australia, and then Campbell Island off of New Zealand, and then of course the great and most fearsome one is Cape Horn off of the southern tip of South America.
Oh, okay.
Argentina, Chile.
Yeah. And that's the most dangerous one? Or?
That is the most. That's the graveyard of thousands of sailors.
Really?
From the old way of getting around before they opened up the canals. The Suez and the Panama revolutionized trade. Nobody went down there anymore, but the sail ships went down there just to take advantage solely of that wind and the fact that the Earth is so much smaller down near the poles. You can make your longitude very quickly, all the way around.
Right.
So that's the route, down around essentially Antarctica and then back up the Atlantic.
Okay. And so how was your experience going through as, first Palestinian American trying to travel around there? You have your family. You're going up against these guys that are like you said.
Oh, French heroes.
Decorated.
Superstars. 16 nations sent their pride and joy.
Representing.
I felt like I did all the research, and I certainly had some experience, and I was comfortable on my boat. And at the start of the race, I knew that I would be a finisher. That's what I had.
You had no doubt.
No doubt that I'm not going to win. I don't want to win. Everybody would love to win, but I just want to finish. I was going to play that conservative game, but. We got past the Gibraltar Straits, and I was off the west coast of Africa and near the Canary Islands, past the Canaries, went through them. I was a couple 100 miles south of them. When my self-steering gear broke, and broke in such a catastrophic way, there was no way to repair it on board. A pipe broke off that swings around, and it has a lot of load on it, stainless steel pipe. And I tried to shave a boat hook and shove it up there and epoxy it all in there. It wasn't going to happen, and I figured that out.
How long did that take you to come to the realization?
10 hours.
10 hours.
10 hours
of
me
hard toiling.
Hard toiling on a really rough seaway with the wind, 40 knots, was blowing in between the katabatic winds that go past volcanoes. And they blow really fast and really hard, and it's a one-way street, but I knew that I needed to make a U-turn for a couple 100 miles too.
Okay.
And that was going to be a real pisser, real rough going.
You had to hand steer.
And I had to hand steer, so that means you had to be awake. And it took me, like 65 hours of brutality. Nobody would willingly bash into the seaway. Normally, you're trying to time it where you're going with the following breeze.
Right.
So this was violent, and after the first 30 hours, I experienced something I never experienced before: seasickness.
Really?
Never ever got it, but mixed with the fatigue and all that, I got it. It was terrible. Now I look on people that suffer with a whole new sense of empathy now.
Before you had no empathy?
I had none. I used to be like, it's probably just in your head. It's psychological, man. Tough it out. It's all in your head. Next thing I knew, it wasn't in your head. It was all over the floor. All over your clothes bag. So that was, it was probably karma, a kick in my ass there. I was glad to experience it now, looking back on it. Terrible, and I realized how being down below with no visual cue of horizon made it even worse. You'd go down below and I'm like, oh no, I can't be down here. And you'd shoot out like a rabbit, So I started to think of all the things I needed from downstairs. I'd make a little list, and I'd
one trip, that's it.
One trip, get down there, and try to get it before you blow chow again.
Jeez.
So that was it was an adventure, and but it took me a long time, a few days to get back, and I was a shadow of the person that left because I got no sleep, right?
Right.
And people say, well, why didn't you heave to a way to keep the boat kind of paused and sleep? Because the wind was 40 knots exactly from where I wanted to go, and every hour I sat there trying to catch some sleep, I lost 3 miles in direction made good, and and that would take me 2 hours or 3 hours of, at an angle to get back there.
So the math didn't add up to you.
And the math didn't add up to me, and I said, you know what this means? After 5 hours of that, figuring this out, I realized this is going to be 100% commitment.
Mhm.
This is going to be either all or none. If they see the boat get close to the islands and then to stop making way and blow away, it means that I collapsed and there was, nothing left of me.
Right.
So that's what I did. I fought my way back, and I knew I was going to go with no sleep, and I knew what was going to be coming, and it came, the highs and the lows getting closer and closer together. No wonder they use that as torture, sleep deprivation, terrible. But I got back and safely to a marina, and slept 4 days away.
As soon as you got back off the land, huh?
Yeah, I was awake for 3 hours here and there, get up, go shower, use the bathroom, and then lay down and suck up some more. Even though you can't really bank sleep, you'd been dragging that wagon for a year trying to get ready for this, and then when everything stopped, it was like you got ran over by a freight train.
Right.
Yeah.
But
There was some depression after that.
For sure.
I mean, some disappointment. I didn't achieve what I knew I had it in me to achieve, and so many people helped out, and just for what turned out to be a 17-day effort, that's not fair to anybody, but also not fair to me.
Right.
I had anticipated months of quality alone time.
You got robbed of it.
And I did. I got robbed of it. Absolutely. And not to say that I don't miss people or land life. I do. I'm a land person,
But you're truly happy.
it was very happy, and I could have seen that if this happened in South Africa after a couple of months aboard, you probably would have gotten off and been like, sucks, but I guess it's all right. After all of that, just having 2 weeks to decompress was not so that disappointing.
So okay, disappointing, but you are now going back to 2022, right? I think, is that what you're aiming for?
Well, we'll just leave that.
Okay, we'll leave that open-ended.
We'll leave it open-ended. It is. They are going to do it in 4 more years. Yes, for the 2022, and if I wanted to be the comeback trail and the underdog comeback story, that would be the event for it, no question. But a lot of time between now and then, so
right.
Who knows what the world will hold for us, but I certainly don't plan on giving up this boat. It's a great boat.
Right now,
Liberty is in the Canary Islands, tugging at her painter, just waiting for me, and still has a year's worth of food on it, and newish sails, and I got parts to fix what broke, and of course, we're not in 1968 anymore, so I can get an electronic autopilot, which make life a lot easier. And I'm going to try to bring it back in a couple weeks to East Coast.
Yeah, you're going New Year's or the first?
Yeah, right around New Year's. Probably take 25 days to cross, and we'll have a transatlantic crossing under our belt, and reward ourselves with a little sun and fun. I'm gonna have to go back to work eventually. There's no question about it. But I'm not ready for retirement. But I'm not ready to go back quite yet. And I would, in the beginning, I had anticipated to still be aboard for at least a few more months. So I feel like I've rested and recouped plenty. Time to go grab that sweetheart and take her down what would they call it? They call it a milk run, a trade wind passage across the southern Atlantic.
And you're gonna dock it in Florida or in the Caribbean?
Probably Martinique or the Caribbean would be nice. There's lots of it I haven't seen yet. I think we could spend a couple of months in the Caribbean for sure. Why not? Maybe we'll have to have you down. What do you think of that?
I would.
What do you think of that, viewers? Hold him to it. He was talking a big game. Like, I'm ready to go. Sure. So, we'll expect to see you.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. And then you have a GoFundMe page, right, for the
for the race.
Yeah, we'll link that in the
still out there. Thank you. And
and
I think the Facebook page for the 2018 effort is still being updated with the news of the current race that's still going on. I hear Susie Goodall recently had trouble. She got pitch poled upside down and swept her deck clean of the mast, and just off of Cape Horn. That's where it's going to happen. And so she is retired from the race. Sad story. And just I think there's just like 5 or 6 left out of the field of 19.
Wow.
and it's not done yet.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see.
And
You know, maybe nobody finishes. Maybe we just get a whole do-over.
Another reset, yeah. That's awesome. Is there what else do you have coming up in the future? I mean, like in terms of sailing or
You know, that's pretty much it.
Right now, you're just kinda
right
like-
now I've been working on a little project for the freeze dryer. I bought a freeze dryer and freeze dried all my own meals for this race, and I became pretty good at it, and saw what I found lacking in the commercial stuff. Mainly was fat and flavor.
okay.
And I found a way to keep it from going bad in the bag, and from using the machine 150 times, in the last couple of years. So I made using some newly found aluminum welding skills.
Yeah, talk about that. How did you jump into that as a hobby?
I after kicking a can around for the first couple of months after returning, it was something that interested me for a while, and I said, well, shit, I'm gonna go buy a welder and figure out the hardest metal of all to weld, which was aluminum. And it took me a brutal learning curve. TIG welding is the particular process. It's very nice, very shiny and tidy. But it took me 2 months to get good enough to have a presentable product. But that's the way we learn sometimes.
Yes,
is you
sir.
sit down and you try, sweep it off the table and get angry and try again.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later we had some improvements. So it's been fun. That's one project, and it's just about done. And thankfully, just done just in time, so I can shove off for a month to bring the boat back. And it's always funny when you get back from a few weeks at sea. You catch up on everything, and you find out like your plans change after you get back because of stuff that happened while you're gone. You didn't really know much about it.
Right. Did you find that hard, that transition from sea life to land life? Coming back to.
I find it harder from sea life to land life than from land life to sea life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a much harder transition.
Uh-huh.
I love the people in my life.
It's overwhelming,
but
a little bit.
and it's not them. It's not like people or relationships. It's busy. Everybody needs and wants something, and you wonder how the world even worked.
Mhm.
And you get back and you realize, oh, look, the world is still going on out there, but I don't have to necessarily participate in any of that. And right now, I'm just making my tasty meal and frying up that fish we caught earlier this afternoon while gobbling up a couple 100 miles a day, and all is right with the world. And look around, you have the most beautiful scene ever.
Right.
Your patio is beautiful, and it's best seat in the house every
Yeah.
day. And also there's something that's been around for thousands of years. People traverse the globe, and you realize, well, there's a lot of hardship that goes with it, but there must have been some motivator other than financial gain and trade that they did this for, and why they ran away to sea with such regularity. And man, it's a beautiful experience. And I'd recommend it to anybody. You can learn how to sail in a long weekend, and you can fill in the rest of the blanks later, with experience. But it's not rocket science.
Right.
And it's who knows? Maybe it'll be everybody's escape pod. If bad times come to the world.
Right.
So it's an option.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or?
No, you come up with any other questions, come back whenever you want.
I mean, yeah, I think we're good for now, and I appreciate you being on the podcast, and we'll put a link up for the pages, and hopefully we will catch up with you